The battle of good versus evil, it's real. And we saw evil descend upon Annunciation Church this morning, taking two precious innocent lives with it. Now, over the past 2 decades or so, the killers who've brought terror and devastation to our churches and our schools have one thing in common. Their faith was non-existent. Their focus was not on God, it was on revenge. Or it was on social media fame, a combination. A desperate need, above all, for recognition and notoriety through the infliction of maximum pain. Now, if it wasn't death by guns, it would be by a knife or with an explosive device and a pressure cooker, maybe a backpack. But like most cities run by Democrats, Minneapolis, of course, is a mess. The politicians are clueless. Their priorities are all screwed up, even today.
I have heard about a whole lot of hate that's being directed at our trans community. Anybody who is using this as an opportunity to villainize our trans community or any other community out there has lost their sense of common humanity.
Asking questions about the shooter's background is not hate, it's common sense. But again, common sense eludes people like Jacob Fry, Twisted Tim Walz, because they claim bragging rights about issues that are statewide embarrassments, which actually celebrate the mutilation of confused children and the release of criminal illegals.
Minneapolis will continue to be a safe haven for undocumented immigrants, for our trans community.
I saw a statistic came out today as Minnesota ranks the highest per capita for being a safe haven for transgender individuals in Minnesota. And
this is life-affirming and life-saving health care. When our children tell us who they are, it is our job as grown-ups to listen and to believe them.
Apparently, that's what this killer's mother thought. These are their real priorities: keeping illegal aliens safe from deportation and ensuring that children have access to puberty blockers and so-called sex change surgeries. This is truly sick. And anyone serious about preventing mass shootings should want to know all the facts here, including what, if anything, triggered this individual. And as our previous guest said, transparency is key here. Now, remember what happened after Audrey Hale, that other trans killer who shot up the Covenant School in Nashville. Officials there tried to keep the public in the dark, as James just alluded to. And liberals excoriated anyone asking for that manifesto. Why? The narrative didn't work. Well, that doesn't work in the age of Trump because a real FBI director is involved now, and he's going to get to the bottom of this. Plus, Americans are pretty smart. A cursory glance at law enforcement numbers in Minneapolis tells us everything we need to know about how serious these people are about public safety. They have learned next to nothing since the George Floyd riots. As of this past May, Minneapolis had 583 law enforcement officers. In March of 2019, that number was 920. Well, police don't feel supported there. They feel targeted. Many retired early. I've spoken with them. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, this is the 3rd police precinct in Minneapolis as it burned in 2020 during the Floyd riots. 5 years later, it's still vacant. It's a monument to anarchy and liberal rule. They finally started doing work this year, I guess, to turn it into some type of voting center, whatever that means. No wonder they can't hire police officers there. I'll tell you, Florida doesn't have the same problem. They know their recruits that elected officials there will actually have their backs. Look, back to our good and evil theme. Liberals do, though, believe in evil. But for them, the word mostly applies to Donald Trump and conservatives who've worked to make cities safer.
This is not about fighting crime. This is about Donald Trump searching for any justification to deploy the military in a blue city, in a blue state, to try and intimidate his political rivals. This is about the President of the United States and his complicit lackey, Stephen Miller, searching for ways to lay the groundwork to circumvent our democracy, militarize our cities, and end elections.
These aren't serious people. If they cared about saving lives, they would be applauding the drop in crime in D.C. since Trump federalized the force there. 1 murder in 2 weeks. But that's not a cause for celebration for them. No, they resort to their usual anti-Second Amendment talking points, usually getting the facts wrong in the process, such as the type of firearms used.
It, of course, makes me think about guns and all the work we've done to ban these automatic rifles and to do something when it comes to the background checks. We keep getting thwarted. We were able to pass a limited measure, but not enough to stop something like this.
Of course, posturing is easy, but why hasn't Klobuchar been asking what the heck is going on with Minneapolis and the PD there, the recruiting numbers? Did she even know that there was a second school-involved shooting in the last 36 hours? Yeah, just yesterday, the police department said an armed man with a high-velocity rifle opened fire at a group of people across the street from Cristo Rey, a Jesuit high school in Minneapolis. 1 man was found dead at the scene, 6 were injured, 3 critically. Police say the shooter left the scene in a car, and they still haven't identified him. But again, liberals don't care. Their soft on crime policies, their perpetual denial of the obvious is endangering lives.
They're just smiling and waltzing right into this trap. I mean, look, going out there saying statistically crime is down. Voters don't believe that. You look at the polling, they don't believe it. They think it's getting worse, or they think it's just staying the same and they want to see it addressed. You know, Democrats sort of saying this is a whole authoritarian power grab by Donald Trump. But the problem with that politically is that while a lot of voters don't like political power plays, the thing they don't like even more is feeling unsafe.
This new AP poll is devastating for Democrats. First, Trump has a 53% approval rating in handling crime. That's because 2/3 of the public thinks that crime in the U.S. is a major problem. And even more, 81% think it's a major concern in our cities. Well, only 1/3, I guess, support the feds taking control of U.S. police departments. By the way, that's not something Trump has suggested. A strong 55% think it's acceptable for the U.S. military and the National Guard to help local police in the large cities. So as the Democrats go back to their same tired talking points, Americans have moved on. They see the world as it really is. So what happened today in Minneapolis is evil. But Trump's attempt to restore order to D.C. is the opposite. His desire to see Chicago and New York and other cities return to their glory days is both ambitious and honorable. And that's the angle.
Fox News alert, tragedy in Minneapolis after a shooter opened fire during a morning mass at a Catholic grammar school. 2 children killed, 8 and 10 years old, and 17 others were rushed to the hospital. 14 of them were children, but police say they're all expected to make it, thankfully. K-8 students were marking the first week of school when bullets started blasting through the windows of the church.
During the mass, a gunman approached on the outside, on the side of the building, and began firing a rifle through the church windows towards the children sitting in the pews at the mass. Shooting through the windows, he struck children and worshipers that were inside the building. The shooter was armed with a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol. This was a deliberate act of violence against innocent children.
Students were ducking for cover as round after round pierced through the pews. One 10-year-old said his friend saved his life.
We just got into mass, and it was like 3 minutes after. It was very scary. It was like my friend got shot in the back. He was like laying on top of me, like making sure I was safe, and he got hit. So that was really brave of him.
And you have a nick on your neck?
Yeah, that was, I don't even know what it's from. Kind of looks like debris or something.
But that came from during this?
Yeah.
How are you feeling? You seem pretty put together here, but it's got to be tough.
Yeah, I'm just like confused kind of because I never thought it would happen.
This should never have happened. But how did it? The shooter was identified as 23-year-old Robin Westman. Robin changed his name from Robert back in 2019 when he was a minor. His mother submitted the name change on his behalf. The court documents say the minor child identifies as female and wanted her name to reflect the identification. So Robert changes his name to Robin and mows down pews of kids at a Catholic school church and then offs himself in the parking lot. And it wasn't just a random church. His mother used to work there. CNN reports Westman actually graduated from there in 2017. And this morning, he showed up with a rifle, shotgun, and pistol. Hours before the shooting, Westman posted a 20-minute video where he paged through a manifesto, described himself as severely depressed and suicidal. He fantasized about the Sandy Hook massacre and said he loves to see kids get shot. The morning shooting was obviously premeditated because there was a drawing of the floor plans in his notebook. The video also shows Jesus' face as target practice. Westman wrote things on his weapons, such as, "Where is your God? Israel must fall. Nuke India. Suck on this. And kill Donald Trump." The FBI is investigating this as an act of domestic terror and a hate crime targeting Catholics. But police say they don't know anything.
We don't have a motive at this time. Obviously, we're open to any possibilities at all, but we don't have a motive.
The media says the motive doesn't matter. It's the gun's fault.
I think it's either like you have to be honest and say what will actually work, which is what nobody wants to hear, which is that there are just simply way too many firearms and they're way too accessible. And even if they're
too powerful?
And they're too powerful. Even handguns, too.
So a suicidal transgender who hates Trump's Christians and Jews shoots up kids at a Catholic school, and the media wants to take away your handgun. So how are we supposed to protect ourselves from trans shooters? The media is bad at pattern recognition. We aren't. Just 2 years ago, another trans 20-something walked into a Christian school in Nashville with a rifle and shot 3 kids and 3 adults. They buried the manifesto and locked down the case. We've seen trans shootings in Colorado and in Maryland. They even shot up an ICE facility in Texas. And it seems like half of Antifa's trans. A couple of they-thems just got popped for firebombing Teslas. The mayor of Minneapolis says you can't say that.
Anybody who is using this as an opportunity to villainize our trans community or any other community out there has lost their sense of common humanity. We should not be operating out of a place of hate for anyone. We should be operating from a place of love for our kids.
I don't hate anyone who thinks they're trans. I feel sorry for them. But statistically, the trans population has been prone to violence. That's not villainizing, that's reality. And if you can't recognize reality, you're in danger. We love the American people, especially American children. And if they're troubled and believe they're somehow a girl trapped in a boy's body, we want to get them help. We don't want to give them hormones and operate on them. Society shouldn't be trying to produce more trans kids. We shouldn't be encouraging an emotional disorder or whatever this is. And doctors should stop profiting from it. Great Britain ended child sex change surgeries. They said it's barbaric, and they're right. And politicians should stop elevating the trans issue like it's the civil rights struggle of the 21st century. You see it all over Minneapolis.
Minneapolis will continue to be a safe haven for our trans community.
For being a safe haven for transgender individuals.
We have sued them for gender-affirming care. Yes, we are not going to scapegoat our transgender community.
When our children tell us who they are, it is our job as grown-ups to listen and to believe them.
So when your 9-year-old tells you he's a horse, do you let him sleep out in the barn and eat hay? What are we doing here? Just a few years ago, the psychiatric community classified transgenderism as a mental illness. Then doctors went woke and removed it as a condition, and now millions of young Americans are identifying themselves as trans and getting high fives. When someone has an illness, we should treat it instead of affirm it. We don't celebrate schizophrenia. We don't encourage depression. Teenagers are confused. Sometimes these things are just a phase. And if they're not, all right, then a grown man can wear a dress. If he wants to do that in America, he has that right. We're a pretty darn tolerant society. But the left's weaponizing trans kids and turning them into culture warriors. And they've been turned loose against the church, schools, and Trump. You see it, I see it. The trans Klan has a militant wing, and it's out for blood. They're taking lives, defiling churches, and freaking everybody out. And some politicians are doing more to protect shooters like Westman than soft targets like schools. In 2023, private schools in Minnesota begged Governor Walz to fund more school safety. They told him it was an urgent and critical need. Minnesota had an $18 billion budget surplus, but the governor didn't do it. Instead, he turned Minnesota into a trans sanctuary, and his attorney general, Keith Ellison, sued Trump so they can keep castrating little boys. Tim Walz failed. Our leaders keep failing us. They failed us during COVID, on trade, on immigration. They say they care about kids, but they locked them down and oversaw an obesity and chronic disease epidemic. And now there's a growing trans epidemic, and they won't even admit it, just like crime. They created a crisis and then lie about it and blame you for not being compassionate. But their fake compassion is getting people killed.
And welcome to Hannity. Our hearts, they are heavy and they are troubled tonight after a horrific shooting in Minneapolis this morning after a shooter opened fire on a Catholic elementary school while children were attending a mass to celebrate the start of the school year. Now, according to police, the shooter was dressed in black, wearing a mask, and shot through stained glass windows. Multiple children are now dead, and police say that the shooter took his own life. The FBI Director, Kash Patel, announcing on X this afternoon the suspect has been identified as Robin Westman, a male born as Robert Westman, and that the FBI is now investigating the shooting as an act of domestic terrorism targeting Catholics. Shortly thereafter, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem confirmed more disturbing details about the suspected shooter, saying he was a man claiming to be transgender and revealing that he had writings on his rifle magazines that read, quote, "For the children, where is your God?" and "Kill Donald Trump." Now, following the horrific shooting, President Trump did post on Truth Social saying that he has been briefed on the shooting, asked everyone to join him in praying for the victims. Now, the White House later issued a proclamation honoring the victims, ordering flags to be flown at half staff at all government facilities all across the country and U.S. outposts across the world until sunset on Sunday. But this horrific act of violence during the first week of school only underscores the need for more law and order and safety and security all around the country. This is something that we have been debating for weeks, something that President Trump now has put in the forefront of his agenda over the past several weeks, with a lot of opposition on the left, sending in the National Guard troop, for example, to clean up crime in D.C. Think of this. You know, our capital, Washington, D.C., of all the capitals around the world, we're number one in terms of the homicide rate. And that means of any other country on earth. How could that happen? Also, the president warning other blue cities that he may do the same there to keep people safe and secure. How do you pursue happiness? It is a prerequisite for happiness to have law and order and safety and security. But once again, Democrats, they can't help themselves, wasting zero time rushing to judgment and politicizing this tragedy before even having the full story. Former Biden White House press secretary, Circleback Jen Psaki, trying to pin the blame on Donald Trump with a bizarre tweet citing his efforts to crack down on crime in D.C., which, by the way, for the record, Circleback, he has been enormously successful in doing. She wrote, quote, "When kids are getting shot in their pews at a Catholic school mass and your crime plan is to have National Guard put mulch down around D.C., maybe rethink your strategy." No, they've been stopping the murder rate, the homicide. We went 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks without a single murder. They usually have 3.6 a week. Maybe somebody at MSDNC can open a book, learn something about AI, do a little bit of research instead of just peddling lies and conspiracy theories. What about the dozens of the school shootings that have taken place, by the way, when Circle back Psaki was press secretary? Did Biden do anything to prevent those? And then, of course, you got, Gavin Nutty Newsom. Can't help himself, posting on X, as he's been doing nonstop for the last several weeks now, writing, quote, "We can't even make it through the first week of school without mass shootings, and the GOP will continue to do absolutely nothing while our kids are being gunned down. This is sick." Wait a minute. These are the same people that supported 12 to 20 million, we don't know the actual number, unvetted, illegal immigrants from over 200 countries, the people that they let into our country, known terrorists, and then harbored them with their sanctuary city and state policies like out in the United Socialist Utopia of California, spending tens and tens of billions of dollars on illegal immigrants for health care, education, criminal justice. Look at who they are. These are the same people that have been protecting these people from the police and trying to stand in the way of ICE agents doing their job. The same people that support defund, dismantle, no bail. Let's reimagine the police madness and send in social workers. The same people that, have turned this guy, alleged MS-13 gang member and alleged wife beater by his own wife, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. They are his biggest champion. This is the party of Abrego Garcia. The same people fighting against deportation, the same people fighting for amnesty, the same people fighting against Donald Trump's efforts to make D.C. safe again. Now, they weren't the only two, by the way. More Democrats, more allies in the legacy media mob took to the airwaves today, of course, to politicize this tragedy in a disgusting but yet predictable way, mocking people offering their prayers because the shooting happened in a church. Take a look.
All the work we've done to ban these automatic rifles and to do something when it comes to the background checks and everything, and we keep getting thwarted.
And don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying. It was the first week of school. They were in a church.
He's expressing something that I know you feel and most people feel, which is a combination of sadness, but raw rage. Forget about thoughts and prayers. These kids were literally praying when they were murdered through a church window. It's
unbelievable. So as Democrats, is there any sense that they can take a moment, a horrific moment like this, kids sitting in pews, literally getting shot to death, and try to do something to help it from stopping again, particularly as it comes to assault weapons?
So I wouldn't expect a lot to change here. I think we see this pattern.
This is madness. This is insane. They are the party of defund, dismantle, no bail laws, reimagine the police. They are the party of sanctuary states and cities and amnesty. And here's the saddest part. School shootings are preventable. And simple, basic, common sense actions can mitigate these tragedies. If we have the desire to stop school shootings, this is the first thing you should do. Every school in the country should have a metal detector. You have them at airports. You have them when you're around elected politicians. By the way, they have armed guards around them. You have to control the entry of kids and the perimeter around every school. And by the way I would do it, I would hire retired military, trained, law enforcement, retired, with concealed carries. They should be in every school in the country, along with metal detectors, along with a secure perimeter. Now, for these people that you hire, you could even do it and not pay them. What do you mean? Hannity, everyone's going to work for free? No, offer them tax incentives if they are willing to volunteer a certain number of hours a week. I believe these common sense practices would help mitigate these horrific shootings, probably put an end to it. And by the way, that means they pay no local taxes, no state taxes, no federal taxes. And if they put in enough hours, How about no estate tax if they pass away and they get to do what they want with the money that they've already paid taxes on? And, you know, the left's rush to immediately blame Republicans, race to blame guns for every tragedy. It's sad, but it's pathetic, but it's predictable. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.